it's very exciting to be in close quarters with U.S. senators. Up here in Canada, Jeremy, you probably don't know this, but our Canadian Senate, although it looks powerful on paper, it's not given much democratic respect because it's appointed for life. They're not elected. So most people ignore senators. Of course, in the United States, senators are very powerful. There's only 2 of them per state, and they are elected for 6-year terms. So they're very powerful people. So to get a meeting with 2 sitting senators actually is a big deal, whereas in Canada, we wouldn't even care about it. So let's play the clip now of you in this small meeting with the truckers and the 2 senators. Let's take a look.
I'm Jeremy Lafreda. I'm with the Rebel News out of Canada.
Oh, terrific.
Of course. So in Canada, we saw Prime Minister Justin Trudeau enact a form of martial law against his people. And I was wondering if you think that America should condemn Canada as a nation, as it does, enemy states, or we should, be okay with it because they're our ally.
Look, I think we have seen government officials in countries all over the world abusing power. And whether it was Justin Trudeau or Joe Biden, they're both abusing their power. And it's wrong. And I think we ought to use our voice to speak up for individual liberty. When the Canadian truckers gave voice to their frustrations, they spoke for the people of Canada, but they also spoke for Americans. They spoke for people all over the world, and that was powerful. And we saw a pattern that sadly has been repeated over and over again of government officials reaching out to their buddies in big tech and demanding they use their power to try to silence dissent. And so in Canada, we saw the government officials demanding of GoFundMe that they essentially go steal $10 million from the Canadian truckers. We saw in the United States, the Biden White House, Jen Psaki at the White House press room, reach out and demand of Spotify that it pull down Joe Rogan for daring to even ask questions about the COVID orthodoxy. That abuse of individual rights is wrong, and we ought to speak out for freedom across the globe.
Thank you.
Well, Jeremy, that was a very substantive answer, I thought. He obviously has been following the Canadian trucker situation. He knew the details of the GoFundMe. That's a big get. I mean, Ted Cruz, he's not everyone's cup of tea, but he is a fairly senior and fairly prominent. I mean, he ran for president in 2016 for the Republican presidential primary. Obviously, was not successful, but I think he is, you would have to call him one of the probably 5 most prominent senators on the Republican side. I thought that was a very substantial exchange. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely he's saying all the right things. That's for sure. And, in America we have, and every country you have it, but we have a type of, political theater that's kind of unmatched by any other nation. So while that they are saying the right thing, you have truckers sitting here outside the Capitol who've traveled from across the country demanding policy changes. And, Ted Cruz sitting down with the organizers is great, but, they didn't reach any substantial concessions, or the government's really not going to give in to the truckers, it doesn't look like, as of now.
Well, I think you're right, and I'm certainly not here to defend Ted Cruz or any politician, but I do note that the mandate, the requirement that truckers get vaxxed across the Canada-U.S. border, which has been the real spark for these trucker convoys, that on the Canadian side, that's Justin Trudeau's order, and on the American side, that's the White House. So I don't even think that Ted Cruz or the other senator who was there, first of all, they're in the minority party in the Senate, and second of all, I suppose they could have introduced some bill or motion in the Senate, but at the end of the day, the decision to rescind that mandate either has to come from the White House or a court striking it down, which may happen, by the way. But no, I take your point. I guess all I would say is in reply to your accurate comment, which is that the truckers actually didn't get anything in hand, is that unless they were to talk to the governing party or the White House or the majority party in Congress, I don't know what Ted Cruz could have given them. But
that's exactly right.
But he gave them some of his time, which is of value, and he gave them words of support. So I'm going to say it's more than nothing. And given that Cruz is in the minority party in the Senate and that it's not within the Senate's power to make or break the mandate, I'm going to say it was, well, let me put it this way. A lot of Canadian politicians were terrified to meet with the truckers on our side of the border. So I got to tip my hat to Ted Cruz. And I like the fact that he gave you a real answer. I mean, he talked to you for about a minute there, which I know that sounds laughable, but no, I thought he gave you a little bit of respect for your question too.
No, it was very well thought out. And it's about time that we, in America, our elected leaders say something of what's going on just north of the border. We have your government enacted a form of martial law against these peaceful protesters. And when that happens in, an enemy state, official enemy state, if that happens in Venezuela, if that happens in Iran or China, it's all over the news. It's blasted all over the news. There's condemnations across the U.S. government. But, with what happened in Canada, since they're, an ally, we were kind of relaxed about it. It's nice to hear somebody really speak out about it.
Yeah, I thought so too. I don't know if you know this, but our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went to London, England, the other day, and Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister there, greeted him warmly, but there were actual street protesters, so many and so noisy that Trudeau had to take another way in. And I was delighted to hear that because I thought, wow, people even that far away have heard about the truckers and know what's going on. And by the way, one of the things they protested was the treatment of trucker organizer Tamara Litch, who spent 18 days in prison. So I was very surprised, pleasantly, by the protests on the streets of the UK. I got one last question for you, and that is, Ted Cruz, Ron Johnson, both Republicans, traditionally not known as the party of the working man. These truckers are working class people. They may be independent owner operators, but still, it's just aesthetically, it feels like a Joe Biden Democrat Party base. Are there any people on the Congress side, on the House of Representatives side? Is there anyone who would typically be called liberal or leftist who met with them, even just to give them the courtesy of a hearing? So we saw the two Republicans. Has anyone else met with the truckers?
No one, not one person who represents the American people and the U.S. government has met with the truckers at any capacity or voiced any support towards them.
Well, I'm disappointed to hear that, but I can't say that I'm actually shocked because it was the same. In fact, in Canada, they were denounced by, there's a party of the left up here called the NDP, which is typically called a socialist party, and they actually condemned the truckers the most viciously, which I found startling. Let me ask you this, Jeremy, before I let you go. And by the way, thanks for joining us. For our viewers who are curious, Jeremy's been embedded with the convoy, and he's doing this interview from an RV, which there was a lot of RVs in the Canadian convoys too. It saves on hotels, and you can roll along with the convoy. What are your plans? I mean, we're delighted to have you stay on this project. You've been at it for almost 2 weeks. What's the plan? What's your plan? What's the plan of the truckers?
Well, I've been speaking to the truckers often, and I spoke with them late last night. I was there at the Hagerstown Speedway where they're all parked. There's still more. It's hard to believe there's still more trucks and convoys coming in from across the country and parking at Hagerstown Speedway in Maryland, right outside of Washington, where we are. Just a couple of days ago, over 60 big rigs and 30 RVs and 20 cars came in and joined our convoy. And I asked, it's late in the game, like why are you joining now? And many of them are, they're interested to see what happens, and they're kind of eager to go into Washington. We hear a lot of talk from the organizers saying, we're going to do another lap around, we're going to do another slow roll. And a lot of the truckers are thinking, we came all this way for my families, for our right to livelihood. We want to work, we want to cross the border. We don't want these mandates to be able to go in and out as they wish to put them with the Emergencies Act. So the organizers are being light-footed, and they just want to keep having meetings, and they want to maybe clog up the Beltway a little bit. And the truckers themselves, they're not working, they're not making money. They're away from their families. They can only stay here so long. So they're getting a little antsy. That's what I sense. And I'll be here until everyone goes home or everyone goes into D.C. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, very interesting. I bet that the Washington, D.C. police and political operators watched very closely what happened in Ottawa. What happened in Ottawa was an international disgrace, by the way. As I think you know, Jeremy, one of our reporters was actually shot at point blank range by a riot policeman with a chemical canister was shocking. I certainly hope that the DC police or other police forces don't copy Ottawa's atrocious example. I hope they regard it as a cautionary tale, but I'm not so sure. Thanks for being on the file for us. I think you made some real news with your interview with Ted Cruz there, so congrats on that. And keep us posted what happens. And if the truckers do go into the city, not just the beltway around the city, but the actual capital region, sparks are going to fly. And we're glad that you're on the scene to cover it for us.
Thank you, Ezra.
All right, there you have it. Jeremy Lafredo, freelance journalist who is on assignment for Rebel News, embedded with the truckers in Hagerstown, Maryland. Stay with us. More ahead. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.